Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Rio Bravo Fine Art Gallery. I'm Carrie Jagger-Gusson. I'm your current Arts Council president. Our guest tonight, or this afternoon, hails from Austin, Texas. She moved here in 2019. She studied with Doug Walton, an architecture professor at Louisiana Tech University. She's a gallery owner on Main Street, TUC, and Joanne is one of our own. Please welcome artist Joanne Long.
I'm going to start my talk with a statement from Pablo Picasso. And it is, the meaning of life is to find your gift. And the purpose of life is to give it away. Right? So what we want to explore today, I'm going to present a vision of how I knew from when I was young that that was my road. It was difficult because during that time period, they wanted you to become a secretary, a hairdresser, whatever. Art wasn't in the quotient for me. So my first, I guess you could say, experience with wanting to be an artist was I had a box of 8 crayons. That's all I had. That's what my parents could afford. My big dream was to have the box of 64 with the built-in pencil sharpener. Anybody else? That's saying yeah. I think that was a visionary thing of most wannabe artists. Well, the second I would say event that happened was I went to a birthday party. And this girl had an easel. You know, you have the children's art easel with all the paints. And I stayed at that easel the whole time. I didn't even go get a piece of cake. And for me, that's saying something. So when I had my birthday party, the mother of that child came and bought me the easel and art supplies, which was a very expensive gift, and said that she had never seen a child love a toy so much in her life. So it's funny, I just became friends with her on Facebook again, found her after 50-something years and told her what her mother did for me. Nice. So that was a real, yeah, it was a wonderful experience. Then when I was, I guess, a couple of years older, I started doing a lemonade stand. And with the money, I bought coloring books and crayons for the children in the hospital. And I walked about 4 miles and I would bring them to the children because I saw how much joy art brought to me and thought it would help them in the healing process. And I think that's my first inkling I got with the connection of art and healing. Then I got rheumatic fever and was in a bed for 3 months with no lights, no TV, no nothing. I even was carried to the bathroom. Well, during that time period, I had so much time for reflection. I had to learn to visualize because I couldn't play or couldn't do anything. So in my head, I would daydream and think of all kinds of excitement at the circus or whatever. So at first I thought that was a terrible thing to have a disease that could possibly affect my whole life. And now I realize that was one of my best gifts I had ever been given. The problem was, afterwards, when I returned back to school, there was a Catholic school, very strict. All I did was want to daydream. So I was a horrible student. The nuns were just, they just wanted to shake me all the time, like, where are you? My mother used to call it La La Land. So, again, it wound up to be a wonderful gift. The second life-changing event was the earthquake in Nepal, when I was one of 15 artists in Nepal when the earthquake hit. And when you realize when you have nothing, you have everything, is what it does. Because you don't know if you're going to live or die. You see death, you see beauty, you see a mixture of everything. So I think that's why it was really hard on me just recently, because when I saw you in Ukraine, they were going through a similar experience, not knowing where they were going, not speaking the same language, just all kinds of elements of it. So that was the second one. The other thing that really brings to mind is in the creative process, if we can't be creative, like I said, I was stifled in school where they wouldn't let me express myself and escaped, was Hitler wanted to be an artist. He was told he was no good. If he had used his creative process to become an artist instead of what he did become, the whole world would be different. And that's one of the things in the back of my mind, how we all need to be able to express our creative process. Then I just watched a documentary on Medici and how he developed Florence. And his thought behind it was how he was the one that arranged all the peace conferences, and he was the one who brought Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci and was their sponsor, and he created space in Florence where people could feel beautiful. The architecture, the sculpture, the paintings, and that was his dream. And I see a little bit, our town's kind of going through a renaissance right now too, where we're bringing in color and beauty and creative people. And I kind of, see a link between those two in that process. And then the other thing that crossed my mind was how not only art, music, everything that's involved in that brings out the best in people. Think of in the Ukraine, these children that are singing, musicians playing pianos on the streets, and how that has helped heal the people. So, and then the other story on that I have for similar type thing, and that's why I brought flowers with me, because I had a painting, a floral painting, in a coffee shop. And for 3 days, this woman came in and stared at the painting, and finally bought it. And I asked her why she purchased that particular painting. And she said that she was a doctor and her child had drowned in the pool, and that painting was the only thing that made her happy. So then I realized, okay, it is a healing process. And I now reflected back to as a child, bringing those coloring books to the children and made a connection. So then I actually went into the healing arts and became a Reiki master and massage therapist and said, okay, we'll use energy in the paintings also and beauty. And so I study the vibration of color, and now most of my paintings that I have, everybody knows, is the color vibration that affects them in my work, and that's where I'm basing my work from. And I think you can all say that looking at those flowers makes you happy, just having them here. Is that right? So maybe the hippies had it right when they said flower power. You know? So, yeah, it was thing. So what I want to do today is have all of you think of what you feel made you an artist or in the spirit of art. And that's what we're going to create the painting with. I have all different color markers. So I want you to start thinking of what inspires you. Well, when I do have like art hop and in my gallery, I try to, like Medici's thought, have beauty around, flowers, I play classical music or Anya or whatever, and make it an experience so they can all feel the vibration of the color, vibration of the music, and create an environment. And to me, that's what my thing, I guess, is going to be. If I have to write something on that, it's going to be probably my goal is to bring joy and happiness through my art, healing through my art. So I would like to have somebody maybe make a JJ. You're going to be first. You were warned what we were going to do.
So let me kind of read this back to see if I was listening. So you want us to put something on the face?
On that face, about how you feel, what inspired you to become an artist, what art does for you, different thoughts that come to your head after what I just said.
Well, does it need to be in writing, or can it be in?
Yeah.
In.
And you have to wear the beret.
It has to be in writing.
It can be an art contribution. It doesn't have to be words.
Right, right. Anything you feel that inspires you to put on that face to make a portrait of an artist. And by the way, JJ was in the earthquake with me, so.
Well, it was long before that I was shaken into being an artist. Well, I'll tell my story because it made me think about it this morning when I was waking up, because I did have a little head warning. And I haven't talked about this, I don't think, but when I was little, very little, growing up, I grew up in a small town, Graham, Texas, and there was a lady around the block, only about four houses away from me, and she was an artist. And she was an artist the way she lived. She was an artist at heart, and that affected me. And I think the reason why is because nobody else was like her. I mean, she was so different than anybody else. So I would go over there when I could, because I loved to go in her house. She had a studio out in the back where she would do ceramics, but with other people. But when I went into her home, she lived in an old house, and it was magical because she had this grand piano, and she also had a large harp in the corner, a full-sized harp. And she said nobody could play them anymore. Somebody in the family had played those. But on the piano, she had flung a silk scarf with long fringe, flung it over the piano in just such a flamboyant, wonderful display of originality that nobody else would dare do. This was in the age when early American furniture was in.
Right. Yeah, that was...
And so she was very different. And I was just intrigued with that. And then I thought, though, she's kind of a loner, though. I don't think she connected with anyone else there that had her kind of a spirit. And then she became very lonely. And I decided, okay, I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to join the art group today. And so I'm supposed to put something on there?
Yes.
You make a fling of scarf?
And you get to choose which color. And you have to wear the beret.
Which goes with your outfit.
Yeah, you have what to do.
Well, I think anything would go with that. Okay, it was red, I remember that.
Okay.
I was the red yarn and red yarn. Yeah, that's what I picked out, so that's what it is. Okay, so, how do you put a scarf on a...
Well, you can do whatever you want. It's your call.
Okay, I'll just do some fringes.
Okay.
Don't forget the beret.
You have to wear the beret.
I have to wear the beret. I know your hair looks really cute today, but I'm sorry.
I'm going to go over these pin stripes.
There you go.
Oh,
Now we've perfect.
okay. Red was predominant. But if okay, I'll just do some. Just do some through there so you all have room to do your art. Okay. Fringe. Fringe row.
JJ has a master's in fine art, so this better be special.
Way to put the pressure on.
Yeah, that's what fringe are good for, isn't it? Okay. And then just a tiny bit. That'll leave you all plenty of room.
I just love all you know, story. That's why I'm trying to bring out stories from childhood and things like that, because her story to me was wonderful with the silk scarf. And every time I see a silk scarf, I'm going to think of that now.
I got one for you. I'll go next. I wonder how long it would take.
It's not enough, it's a scarf.
Okay, JJ.
But I want to add something too, though. With that is it's wonderful to be in a community where you can be different. Because being different is being, you know, who cares?
That's right. That's exactly
And that's
right.
why I chose to move here.
Don't forget to leave the beret.
Yeah.
No, I like it.
And it really looks cute on you. So you're a bad hair day, you're all set. But yeah.
Thank you.
JJ, I also wanted to ask you to elaborate on the comment, I don't think you were here, the one that Doug initiated was when you have nothing, you have everything, and what that experience did. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
When you have nothing, you have everything. I think that he was referring to us in the earthquake. That it was a different experience out there because you didn't. Who cared if you lost your money, if your camera just broke, if you your passport, where the heck was it? That wasn't important. The only thing important was looking up and seeing the sky and breathing and hoping that we would be breathing the next day.
Right, right.
So that's everything.
And we were not ugly Americans. We actually interacted with the people, the children, and
Right. And in a way, it was a very, I don't know what to say. It was, I felt privileged to have had the opportunity to have that experience.
yes, and that's why I said it's kind of like the rheumatic fever, and that both of those were life-changing events to me, and I'm very thankful for both of them. And when you say that to people, sometimes they just don't understand because, you know, it's one of those things that you have to experience.
Well, I don't think I understood either. So before that, but it just I think that everyone that was there, it expanded themselves. So very, very unfortunate with all the deaths, but actually it was special to have had that opportunity to have been through there and been so close with the people.
Right.
And to have lived.
Who would like to be next? Okay, Pat.
All right.
You know the routine.
Yep, I got the routine. I only need
Watch your
red.
glasses, don't have them fall off.
So my mother worked for Look magazine when I was little, and she had all kinds of stuff she had to do for advertising. And I think it was Revlon gave her a whole bunch of lipsticks.
Ooh.
And she had to,
My kind of gift.
yeah, she had to do something with them to promote them. So she did Van Gogh sunflowers and lipsticks.
Really? That's fabulous.
It's all different colored lipsticks, but it was Van Gogh sunflowers. So I'm going to do her list. So there we go. Give her a smile.
I must have picked up that you were going to do the lips, because I was thinking lips. I don't know why.
That's why I left her blank, because I wanted to have the blank slate, because I didn't know what people's experience was, so.
There you go.
It's a fun idea.
There. Perfect.
So that is, you think about that every time you put lipstick on?
Wait a minute, how many colors did you do on her lips?
This one.
Van Gogh used lots of color. You got lots of color there.
Lots of white space.
All right, you asked for it.
Okay.
Rainbow lips.
There. Done.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay. Who are we gonna get up next? Who has a comment?
I can see everybody
Gay?
thinking.
All right, Gay, you also had rheumatic fever. Did it do something similar to you?
I did. Actually, I didn't know I had rheumatic fever. I had all kinds of illnesses in a very short period of time, and I was bedridden due to them. And I didn't know I had rheumatic fever until many years later, and I had a doctor from India that was treating me for asthma, and he asked me how old I was when I had rheumatic fever. And I said, how do you know I had rheumatic fever? And he said, look at your lung x-rays with me and it'll explain the whole thing. And we did. So that's how I figured out that I had it.
So do you have an underlying thing that makes you feel for the spirit of art? I know you like miniatures.
Yeah, I do. I think, you know, I grew up as a young child with a lot of my time on the reservation with a lot of elders, and one in specific was very, very good to me, and allowed me to be with her and to work with her. And she was actually threatened because I was white. She was actually threatened that they were going to close her school down because she had accepted me as a student. And she said, well, that's okay. I said, what do you mean that's okay? And she said, well, we'll just pack up and we'll leave. And they said, you can't leave. And she said, yeah, I can. And so they decided that rather than lose her, they'd let me stay. So that was kind of my beginning in the art world.
So maybe you can put like a beaded necklace on her. I know you do fabulous beadwork.
How about an earring? Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. She was a neat lady.
Well, you had said that a lot of the elders that you learned from were so inspiring for you and taught you so much.
They were very good.
And how old were you when you started working with the?
I was 8.
8?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So cool. So you knew pretty young what you wanted to do too.
And what took you to the reservation? Did your parents teach, or?
My family homesteaded on the reservation 6 generations ago.
Ah.
Wow.
And so they still live on the reservation. So,
Yeah, she's had a lot of really neat life experiences from that.
I was very fortunate. There you go, you got your
How about you, Robin? I know you're an art collector and you really appreciate art. So what having art in your possession, what does that do to you?
You know, I had an uncle who lived in Taos when I was a kid, and that's where I spent my summers. And nothing like an immersive, colorful palette of fabulousness. And this is in the early 60s. I mean, I got to meet people that everybody else just talks about. And, you know, and I realized to all of these people, the weavers and the painters and the jewelry makers, that it was a heart gift that they were giving. And I just, from that, I mean, my uncle was my muse. He was just always the, you know, he was a gay man when being gay. You know, I mean, he served in World War II and, you know, went through all of that as a gay man and, you know, struggled with love all of his life. But, yeah, he led me. It was his path.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know you really appreciate art. And Lori, you were young when you started doing photography. Maybe you have a statement about how you learned photography.
I grew up with very little in San Bernardino, California. My family went there with the Mormons and the covered wagons. But we were never the people that owned anything. We were always the meager group. And when I went to middle school, the science teacher also taught photography, and he had built a dark room in his classroom, I'm sure quite illegally. And he would come in at lunch when we were in there working in the dark room and say, I hate kids in classes about this. But he was a very kind man and did not hate kids. And he would allow me to take the camera from the box that he had to return to storage for the summer, every summer, and let me keep it all summer. So he inventoried the box, which allowed me the use of the camera. And then I went to high school, and there was a very similar teacher who did sort of the same privileges, who all acted as mentors to do photography. And photography then was black and white, in the dark room, all those kinds of things. And I don't like the sunshine, so the dark room is a really good place for me. But now I use Photoshop, and there isn't much darkroom use anymore by anyone. But I think in everything, like you said, everything, there is beauty. It's just how you, in art, interpret it. In photography, it's very much the same way. It's how you catch it. I just did senior pictures for a Down syndrome guy, and he and his mom and I were talking about how we could make him look more typical in the pictures, or how we could leave him to look like himself, and what was our choice, and which was his gift to us within that. So I think that's the part of photography I like, is finding the gift that's for me and for others.
Right, that is giving it, just like the quote from Picasso. It's giving it a way that really brings us more joy, and that we feel blessed that we had the gift to begin with.
Yeah.
When we can trace our roots to things in our lives, and it kind of makes the whole mystery of life like, okay, there is a purpose, there is a plan, there is something going on here. And to recognize it is really beautiful. And in your chosen aspect of art, you have both technical and the creative process. So, you know, and a lot in art too, there's a lot of technical things, but you have equipment to deal with and all that. So I honor that.
Thank you.
Did you want to put some up on the board on the portrait? A camera or something?
Took your shoes off.
Oh, that's neat, yeah. Through the camera lens?
Yes. I like it, yeah.
Another eye or another.
Yeah. The camera's on.
How about you? What's going to make the portrait? Everybody's input.
I'm Andrea, and I'm from Minnesota, and I was inspired by my mother and my sister. They're both artists. I didn't start art until later in my life. I raised 6 children, and I had a lot of negative things happen to me in my life, but I've never really cared about what people thought of me as I went through everything. So what I do is what I do, and how I do it is how I do it. So this is what I'm going to do.
Very good.
I don't know how to put it on.
Just it kind of stretches in. It looks good. Looks good with your hair.
That's it for me.
Hey.
How about you? Do you have a comment to make for
I do.
addition to the portrait?
Hello everyone, my name's Jeffrey. I'm a newbie. I know a few of you. I moved here late last year. The lady who was speaking about photography, what's your name?
Lori.
Lori?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Hi. I had a really similar experience to you. So I grew up in England. I went to a really strict all-boys
With a tie.
private school. Oh yes, worse, with the pipe blazers and the stupid little shorts.
Yes.
I mean, think of a Dickens novel, and that's where we were. So fortunately, the art department at my English school was in a prefabricated block away from all the other buildings, and it was small, as if, oh, we have to have art, but we'll put it all the way over there, on the opposite side of the military parade ground, which is military school. Fortunately for me, we had 3 brilliant art teachers, and I was trained to use the darkroom when I was 13. And one of the things I loved about it was when you were in there with that red light on, nobody could enter, which meant I used it to hide from the prefects when I was in trouble. As well as doing actual print, but I've been a photography nut my whole life. I've been an artist my whole life. I'm not quite sure how to, I was thinking about this, Joanne, about trying to pinpoint what the earliest thing would be. My father was an amateur astronomer, and he loved his telescopes. And I suppose my earliest memories of making art would be astronomy related. Trying to recreate the images of planets and moons that we saw through Dad's telescope. And then I'm very involved in the science world. So then I'm gonna not share clothing during COVID, if you will excuse me. It's a fantastic idea though, and I do wear a beret very well. So another time, please. So I've worked in the science world and the art world, and I'm very involved in the science world for many, many years. And one of the reasons that I moved here is, I say this with all love and respect, I love the wackiness of this town, the eccentricity and the free expression of the arts community. So I'm probably one of the newest members of the arts community. I just joined a couple of weekends ago. So thank you very much for having me. I'm a bit of a misfit. Lived in England and all over the States and traveled all over the world. And I've chosen to make your beautiful and eccentric town my home. So one of the things that really interests me is the intersection of the art world and the science world. So for our character's second eye,
Oh, right.
Oh, that's neat. Wow.
I will give
That's wonderful.
I will give her Saturn.
I'm liking this portrait better and better.
But we also need, because you can't do a night sky without some stars. Oh, and the moons of Saturn, of course, which they keep discovering more and more, and of which Amalthea is my favorite. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's what a fun exercise, Joanne. It's really fun.
For me, my inspiration for art is from nature, from flowers, from everything in nature, including mathematics and geometry, which I use in my art quite a bit. So I'll put something in painting like flowers from nature.
Thank you. Now, Rebecca does, I'm sure you all know, she does fabulous fiber arts and quilting, and my sister, she was never really into the art. She was more into her head. She's a pharmacist. But she has been doing quilting, beautiful quilting, and gives it all to the Lioness Project, which helps children who have been in trauma. And that was another healing aspect of how art and the quilt and the comforting, you know, and working with a quilt is so, you know, wrapping yourself up in the art, that's another aspect of it. So, thank you. How about you? Did you think of something now?
I feel art is my life, and I was surrounded with it as a child, both with music and plantings, and my father was always, whenever he came through the house, was tap dancing. My grandfather was an incredible wood carver, and my sister got scholarships for art and taught art for years. But I think the greatest awakening for me, and this is what I want to try to put into words, was the essence that came through the unseeable, which we might call energy, or dreams, or visitations. I think this, for me, it has always been silent. That's why I want to put it into words, because it turned into placement, you know, walking into a room and moving something from one place to another, or turned into how we dress, or the words that we use. So, and that's why I say it was my life, because it was an energetic expression. And it's just now the being is giving it permission to come out. So it also comes out in mudras and in
Right, that's what I'm saying, all
and in different languages.
Right.
That before was only shared with animals or walks. It's a close relationship to nature, and now the being just allows it to be. So we could be talking about something that could be very deep, and just I noticed listening to you, I've just started to emote, you know. So it's very sensitive to the non-expressed, and in the energy of what occurred that a person is speaking to, that my being can go to and just feel. So I think if I was to do something, it would be very simple. Like a beauty mark.
Oh, that's really a nice thought. You know, art and beauty, you're creating beauty. It's yeah. And I think I've come to terms with, it's okay, what's your goal or whatever. When I came here 2 years in a row as an art residency, and 1 year with JJ, and we fell in love with the town. And I remember seeing the sign on the building I bought, Light of the Soul, and I go, that's really how I feel about it. It brings light to my soul. So I kept the name that she had, and to me, that is my goal, is to bring light to the soul. And so I think it was a perfect, perfect name to operate under, was Light of the Soul. So I have one other thing I'd like to read also, and this is from a book of Robert Henry, which JJ gifted me. And it's The Question of Development of the Art Spirit in All Walks of Life Interests Me. I mean by this, the development of individual judgment and taste, the love of work for the sake of doing things well, tendency towards simplicity and order. In anything can be done to bring the public to a greater consciousness of the relationship between art and life. Be part of each person plays in exercising development of his own personal taste and judgment, and not depending on outside authority, it would be well. I think that was a beautiful, it kind of sums up the whole thing. And we have to be our individuals, and that's what, when I hear you talk about why you're in the town, or like Jeff said, what draws him here, it's because we can be individuals and develop our own sense of style without the threat of feeling, you know, like we don't belong or whatever, because we all belong in this community. We're all, you know, part of the whole circle. So does anybody have any questions on anything that's been said? Yes, Jeff?
Was that from the Art Spirit?
Yes, absolutely.
It's a fantastic book.
Isn't it a fantastic book?
Did you know that he was such a beloved art teacher? He didn't write that book.
Right.
And it was
It
put
was his
together
notes,
by
right,
his students.
from Art
Yes.
Institute, yes.
It's out of print, but you can find it.
Because it is, he did fabulous portrait work, but his lecture notes that are in that book are really wonderful. Gives you an idea how people were inspired by his lectures. And that's why I kind of wanted to not really make a lecture, to make it interactive, so we could bring out, you know, what makes an artist, what makes a portrait of an artist, rather than, you know, I tell about me just so you can kind of think about in your life what's happened that has made you become either art lover, artist, music, whatever it is that makes your soul happy.
Can I ask another question?
Mm-hmm.
So, many of your friends maybe already know the answer to this, but you will recall probably from the last art hop that I was really taken with your gallery and the way you turned the old vault into sort of a spiritual, a calm
Right, and that, yeah, like I said, I try to have the music and flowers, and usually I'll do wine and truffles, or make it an elevated experience. So, because it just nurtures our souls so much to be around beauty, you know.
How did you get from looking at a vault, which is not the most welcoming space,
My sacred safe.
but you turned it into such a marvelous space? It's really
Right.
calming.
I know it is.
How
I
did you
put a
get
lot of
there?
elements, and I've done a lot of energy work in there, and have a lot of elements to contribute to it. But the altar was actually an old dresser that was left there, and it didn't have a mirror. So I said, I'll do a portrait of Frida, because she's one of my big inspirations. She was through so much in life and overcame everything. And her passion for her art really has inspired me. So, and then I did the altar to Elvis, so she would have a cute boyfriend. Because if I had to pick one, it would have been Elvis. So then I just put things around that I think would make people happy. It's part of the experience. Even if they're not art lovers, they can come to that gallery and take something back with them that made them feel good. So, any other questions?
I have a comment to make. I have known about this woman for over 20 years, or about 20 years, because her daughter was a friend of mine in Austin. Never met her, but, you know, Jeanette would just have these, well, now my mom is, you know, she was the first person I knew that had a bed and breakfast. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then massage therapy and healing, and it's like, oh, that's so cool. And then she's building a bale house in Colorado, and she's building, I mean, there's just, the stories went on, and I'm just like, I mean, Jeanette's pretty fabulous in her own right. And you know, I was just like, this is crazy. And then one day I get a phone call from Jeanette. She says, I think my mom's in your town. And I said, really? She goes, yeah, I think she's there for a workshop. And she gave me the number, and I called her, and we had coffee, and it was just like, the next thing I hear from her is, oh, I bought a gallery. Oh, I'm living here. Oh, and it was just like, suddenly this phenom that had dwelled in my brain for 20 years was manifested in this beautiful, glorious, artistic woman right here. And none of the stories were fake. None of the stories were over amplified.
I know,
It was just really who
what?
she is. You know, I'm going to tell you that she exceeds my age by a few years, and she could run circles around me all day long. She never stops. And her energy level is such that it shares with so many people, and I love that.
Thank you so much, Robin. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, what was Robin going to put on the,
I am so cute always. But I am not an artist. But I so appreciate art. But you know, this girl needs to know. So, my favorite part of all is music. So I think she could have a little musical nose. Oh, cool.
Oh.
I saw that over there. And I also also think her hat is just, sorry.
She's not an artist, huh?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go to town now.
You're an artist now.
Just kind of, you know, because the flowers and everything. Anyways,
I love the
I'm
flower.
on it, purple.
Yeah, I think our portrait looks pretty special, and hopefully by looking at it now, it kind of gives you an idea of what makes an artist and how many different aspects there are of an artist. And hopefully that get us more thinking. Besides today, we can start thinking about things in our life that do bring us joy, especially in times like this when we really have to focus on positive things, because there's so much thing in the yin-yang thing going off balance right now that if we can bring joy to anybody right now through art, music, whatever it is, that is a real good goal. Like she said, give away your gifts as much as you can, kind of pay it forward. So thank you for contributing. Because JJ has been one of my strong friends for since the earthquake, because when you think you're going to die together, it really makes a bond that can't be explained. It's one of those experiences that you have to go through, and I feel really honored that JJ decided to move here by me, because when she first came to TRC, she said, I don't think so. And so she didn't come to the second art residency. And I said, okay. I sent her a picture of some houses for sale and said, you're going to come here and look some more, JJ. And finally she saw the possibilities of this town and what it could do for her as a place of an artist woman where she could grow. And she's setting up her studio now, and I'm waiting for the day that's done so she can get back to her wonderful work.
Well, I am so ready. It's like, this is my time. I don't want to do any teaching. I don't want to do any kind of other jobs that I have in the past. This is just my time to, I don't know whatever I want to do.
And I
Be greedy.
I love that thought. I love that thought. You know, you're experimenting. One thing you did, I don't know if the audience knows, that JJ also was in, I guess it was considered fashion design?
Earlier.
Earlier in
my
her
first
life.
life.
Remember the show with Buffy and Jody and Mrs. Beasley?
Oh.
Tell them what you did, JJ.
Oh, we designed Buffy's clothing, and it was a little line. It was a line called Buffy from that old movie, and so that's where I started with. And then after that, I had gone into New York on one of our trips, and I realized I don't know as much as these other people knowing when we went into the Whitney Museum, and it's like, okay, I'm going to go home and I'm going to take some classes in contemporary art. And so they said, I just wanted to sit in on them. I thought, oh, surely they'd let me sit in on a class. No, you can't sit on the class. You have to register. And then they said, oh, well, you can't just take a class. You have to be accepted into the program. So then I said, oh, well, okay, I'll do that. So I went down and showed them my portfolio of what I had, and so they let me in without having to take any of the preliminary tests. So that's how I came back into school. So I'm kind of like Renoir, talking about his ping pong theory in life. You just I bounced from one thing to another without having an intent goal. And so that's where I am right now. I'm still bouncing.
Yeah, and JJ and I also have the same art mentor I've had for 30 years. And how long were you with Doug?
Probably a little bit longer than that.
Right, and we never crossed paths that we remember in all the classes that we took. But she traveled all over the world with Doug and was his assistant for quite a few years. So. But
I know about the art spirit. It's like, we could have written those books. I have enough to have written a book like that too.
Yeah, he's more, because our mentor is more of a spiritual leader than he is an art teacher, I think, too. He's taught us, like, That's why I put a tablecloth on here. He does not eat a meal without doing a beautiful table setting. Everything has to be done in beauty, which I've learned a lot, and that's, you know, I'm sure you did too.
Yeah, I think about that every time I put that little tray on my lap when I'm watching TV.
We think of Joe, we would have gotten scolded.